Hey, Slater Crusaders, America's the greatest country in the world. Glad you're here. Well, Beyonce and Jay-Z, they do not agree with that statement that America's the greatest country in the world. They did not stand for the national anthem last night. They're very brave, those two, making their political statement. Still went to the game, of course. Sat in the luxury box, but America's a real terrible place. I'm glad you're here, though. Welcome to our groggy post-Super Bowl Monday. The good news of the week is only a few days left of this Senate trial, and we can stop with the nonsense already. Gosh, it's been awful. I'll say it again. We've said it a million times. This whole thing has been surreal because every single person knew what the end result would be. So why are we doing this? Why are we going through the motions here? I don't even know why the Democrats are doing this. They know they're going to lose. They knew it all along. Remember Nancy was so happy to sign the impeachment document? Remember where she signed her name with 50 different pens and her name was on each of the pens and she gleefully handed them out to her fellow congressmen, right? So she was signing the impeachment papers to hand them to the Senate, but for what? She knew they'd lose. What's the point of all this? Excuse the overly dramatic battle metaphor, but what Nancy did was at best a Pyrrhic victory. So 280 BC, King Pyrrhus of Greece going against the Roman Republic, and the king won. He won two battles in particular. He beat the Romans, but he came back home, and everyone was so happy he won. Big parades, the whole thing. And he said, if we are victorious in one more battle with the Romans, we shall be utterly ruined. You think, wait, if we're victorious in one more, right? You'd think he'd say, man, if we get shellacked one more battle like that, we'll be ruined. No, he won the battles. But at what cost? They won the battle, but at such a cost, you might as well have lost. So for Pelosi, maybe there was a short-term victory for like a day, but it just guaranteed a long-term defeat. And that's what we're going to see here in the next week, right? So yeah, Nancy, you celebrate for a day that he was impeached, but you knew that the battle was going to then continue into a territory, the Senate, where you 100% chance you were going to lose. Why did you do this? And I would say the whole thing is a wash, right? That'd be one thing. If it was all just a wash, it all evened out. And I'm tempted to say that because no one's mind was changed throughout this entire thing, right? No one's mind was changed. If you liked the president before, then you like him even more now after this impeachment process. If you hated the president before, then you hate him maybe even more than just before. So no supporter of Trump said, wow, I really liked Trump, but he's impeached, so I guess I'm a big Bernie guy now. That doesn't happen. And no one who hated Trump said, well, I really hate him, but he was acquitted in the Senate, so we should build that wall on the southern border. That doesn't happen either. No one's mind was changed. So I'm tempted to say it's a wash, but it's worse than that because I think two things have happened. Worse than just being a straight wash. First, the left always talks about lack of unity in America, right? Well, going through this impeachment process certainly did not heal any divisions, as if they really even had those intentions in the first place, but so we're probably worse off as a country because of that. But the bigger problem, and this is coming from a Democrat's perspective, honestly, from a Republican's perspective, like no bad, really. Like Trump's better off than ever. So and he's stronger than ever. So if you're a Republican, I don't really see any bad. If you're a Democrat, this was really bad because Nancy sucked the air out of the entire room. Let's back it up a second. One of the main reasons why Trump won 2016, there's a bunch, right? But one of them was he completely sucked the oxygen out of the room for every other Republican that was in the race. Remember we said this the other day. If you remember the campaign, he'd give some speech somewhere, and the cable networks would take a live shot of his podium with the website on it and text Trump to this number, the website, an hour before Trump even got to the microphone. An hour, just free advertising for an hour, and like Trump speaking soon. And it was like that every single day. Meanwhile, did the media ever take a Jeb speech? Do you ever remember one time listening to Jeb give a speech? No Republican could get any airtime. All eyes were completely on Trump the entire time. Court attention at all costs in the 48 laws of power. And impeachment's done the same thing against the Democrats. A quite literal example of impeachment distracting Democrats away from 2020 is that 3 of the senators who are running for president can't even be in Iowa today. They can't even be there because of the impeachment trial. Like, that is literally sucking the oxygen out of the room, right? Rick Santorum, he won the 2020 or 2012 Iowa caucus, and he said he'd be furious if he couldn't attend it. He said, I'd be incensed. He said, these aren't primaries, these are caucus, it's different. He said he went to 5 or 6 caucuses on caucus night. He said, you go to the bigger caucuses, you get to speak in front of the caucus voters. He said, this is a huge blow to these Democratic candidates, the one that can't show up today. And if a senator bails on the Senate trial, then the sergeant at arms will come and arrest you. So my point is, Trump won the 2016 primary because he took the entire spotlight from everyone else. And the Democrats are hurting themselves. I should say Pelosi is hurting the Democrats because she's taken the spotlight off of all the candidates and put it on impeachment for these last, months, really. Now, maybe, now that I kind of think about it, maybe that's kind of good for the Democrats, too, because they wouldn't do much with the spotlight. Right? So maybe it's probably for the best. Right? Elizabeth Warren keeps making taxpayer-funded sex change operations for prisoners a centerpiece of her campaign. So maybe it's better that the spotlight's not on her. You couldn't make up a more comical position than that one. I guess the only thing would be worse would be like taxpayer-funded sex change operations for ISIS terrorists in Gitmo. Like that would, but listen, there's still time for her to add that in, so I don't want to give her any ideas. Michael Continetti, he had a funny line the other day. He said, Biden is barely comprehensible. Buttigieg has all the pizzazz of a PowerPoint presentation. And Warren reminds you of your least favorite professor. So maybe this, now that I think about it, maybe this is all a grand strategic plan from Nancy Pelosi to not put the spotlight on the Democrats because it's for the best. It's for the best that no one really pay attention to what their plans actually are. I don't know, I may be giving her too much credit for that. I do know the more attention the Democrats get, the stronger Trump becomes. And the more Pelosi attacks Trump, the stronger he gets. The more the media attack Trump, certainly the stronger he gets. And the Democrats, since 2016, they've been looking for a savior. They've been looking for it. First, it was James Comey. He was the one who's going to take Trump out. Jim Comey's going to take out Trump. Then, of course, there was Mueller. That didn't do it. And Paul Manafort, Michael Cohen, Stormy Daniels is going to take down Trump. Michael Avenatti, who I think is in jail right now. Michael Wolff with his big book. Omarosa. Geez, they had to rely on Omarosa. That's how desperate they were. Omarosa's going to take down Trump. And then Nadler and Schiff and Nancy Pelosi. Listen, I understand a couple weeks of Trump derangement syndrome after the election. I get that, right? You're a Democrat. You assume Hillary's going to win. Everyone thinks Hillary's going to win. Hillary doesn't win. You're going to be shocked, right? A couple weeks freaking out. Remember all the talk about Trump's going to round up all the Muslims in internment camps and kill all the gays and all that stuff, right? So we'll let some of the hyperbole go for a little while. I understand the shock. But after a couple weeks, you got to pick yourself up and move on. You got to focus on 2020. And the Democrats never did. They never got over it. They never pivoted away from the Trump derangement syndrome into an actual 2020 election strategy, to the point where it's caucus day in Iowa, and many of the candidates can't even be there. So, listen, as someone who wants Trump reelected, thanks, Nancy. Coming up next, we got a clip from a focus group that was done in Pennsylvania. Trump barely won Pennsylvania. So we'll talk about that a bit. I want to play that clip, and then we'll talk for a second here about how the Iowa caucus actually works. We'll get a little background on that. True story. Mike Slater, spread the word. Hey, Slater Crusaders, it is caucus day in Iowa. So let's talk for just a second here about how it all works. Because it's different than primary. But I don't want to spend too much time on it because it doesn't really matter, because here's what's going to happen. In the lead up to the caucus, the Iowa caucus is everything. The most important thing in the world for each candidate, sets the stage for the future, sets the momentum for the future, all this hype, all this buildup, and then Bernie's gonna win it, and the media's gonna come back tomorrow, I guarantee, and say, well, Iowa doesn't really matter. It's really New Hampshire. It's all about New Hampshire, right? Whenever the media's preferred candidate does not win Iowa, Iowa suddenly turns into not a big deal. Looking at you, Ron Paul. This is how the Republican caucus, they do it more like a primary. But sorry, the Republican caucus is more like a primary, but the Democratic caucus, they do it kind of fun. So there's a couple changes this year too, but anyway, here's the short of it. Iowa has 1,678 precinct caucus locations. So each location, like a gymnasium, for instance, each candidate has a designated area within the gym. So everyone in the room divides up into the area of the candidate they support, right? So you walk in, there's a big gymnasium, and Andrew Yang supporters, you go over that corner. Bernie, your supporters go over there. Biden, you supporters, you go over there, right? So everyone physically picks up and walks over to their corner, and then they count everyone up. And if your group makes up less than 15% of the entire room, then your candidate is eliminated, and you're deemed not viable. Okay? So let's say you go to a caucus site and there's 100 people there, right? Just for math's sake. 100 people there, and you go to the Mike Bloomberg area. You were so moved by that by that Super Bowl commercial yesterday about how how many children are killed by guns, which was a wildly inaccurate statistic that we'll talk about more tomorrow. But you were so tricked by that advertisement. You're now a big Bloomberg guy. So you go in the corner and you say, I'm here with Bloomberg. I think the mayor of New York City, who wants to ban soda, is great for our country, and who doesn't think the president of China is a dictator. He's our guy. So you go to his corner, and there's 10 of you there. They count everyone up. You're only 10%, right? So you're not viable. So after that, you get 3 options, because then we all vote again. So you got 3 options if you're in the Bloomberg camp. You can go to your number 2 candidate. So you go switch teams. Or you can try and convince other people to come to Mike Bloomberg, right? So you go over to the Yang people or the Biden people, whatever, and you go, hey, come over to Bloomberg. Or you take your ball and you go home, and you don't want to play anymore. And then you vote again, and then that's it. So from here, it gets a little bit more complicated. Again, they do it one more time, and then they record the proportion of the results to establish a certain number of delegates, and the delegates are then sent to the state convention in June, and then those delegates do the same thing again, and then those delegates decide who gets to go to the national convention, and then blah, 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 but no one's paying attention by then, so it doesn't matter. The tally tonight is all that matters. Now, I like this process. I think it's cool. The antisocial part of me wants to go to my voting precinct and go into my secret little cave, right? No one can see me, and I vote, and then I go home, and no one says anything. Every time I've ever voted, it's silent. No one's talking. Everyone's in hushed tones. Oh, hello, hello. And you go, and you vote, and then you leave. Anyway, right, it's very quiet, right? The antisocial part of me likes that. But the America part of me thinks this caucus is pretty cool. I think it's very, it's very 1776. It's very like I see a bunch of farmers doing it. You know what I mean? Like coming in from the farm, and it's like big caucus day, and you have a fun time with it. It's active, it's engaging, it's face to face. Ideally, it's a pretty thoughtful thing, right? You make an argument, you listen to an argument, you got to convince people. It's a cool back and forth, right? There's also some strategy involved, right? So let's say your number 1 pick is not going to win, a big Andrew Yang guy or something, and it looks like Biden's going to win, but you really don't want Biden. So then you decide to go support Bernie, not even really because you like Bernie, but you definitely don't like Biden, and you don't want Biden to get right. So there's like a little like gaming throughout it all. So again, it's good. It's very 1776. It's active. Who knows? Might come down to fisticuffs. I don't know. Things got a little out of hand. Kyle Salmon, he said, a party caucus epitomizes the consultative, community-based democracy that leads to consensus candidates. Voting is a part of self-government, but only a part. Speaking, listening, and exchanging ideas are also necessary to build trust and find agreement. Caucuses do that, primaries don't. I think that's true. So anyway, that's how the caucus is going to work today. CBS, the other day, they did a focus group in Pennsylvania. Worth noting here, Trump barely won Pennsylvania. 44,000 votes. Maybe that sounds like a lot. Out of 6 million. He won Pennsylvania by 0.72%. And it was even closer than that in Wisconsin. I think this is one of the craziest facts of 2016. Wrap your head around this. I tell myself this fact whenever I get a little too cocky about Trump's chances in 2020, right? No one said Trump was going to win in 2016. And I came out pretty early, and it's like, and we can tell a story another day, but I was like, I think he's going to win. But now it's the other way around. Now everyone's like, oh, Trump's got it in the bag. And I'm like, here's why I get a little concerned sometimes. Hillary beat Trump in Brooklyn, right? Just Brooklyn, a single borough, by 500,000 votes. Trump won the entire state of Pennsylvania by 44,000. He won Wisconsin by 23,000 votes and Florida by 112,000. So add that up, that's 179,000. That means Hillary won Brooklyn by almost 3 times as many people as Trump won Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Florida combined. All right, so it was close. And you wonder why the left is so desperate to get rid of the Electoral College as well. That would be why. So anyway, you can put that aside as we move forward here. So Pennsylvania. I think all elections are ultimately local, right? We have a national media, so the media tends to focus on national issues and national trends. But I think in the end, there's an argument to be made that it's all local. And there's a lot of oil in Pennsylvania. That's why oil, Pennzoil, Pennsylvania, Quaker State, right? A lot of oil in Pennsylvania, lots of fracking today. And the Democrats campaign hard against fracking and all fossil fuels, and that's gonna really hurt in Pennsylvania. So that's one thing to know about Pennsylvania. And it's close in Pennsylvania. But listen to these women in this focus group. So as a focus group, there are 4 Democrats and 4 Republicans. Here are 2 of the Republicans. Listen how eloquent these women are.
What do you like about what's happening?
Oh, I like the fact that, my portfolio looks pretty nice right now. I can make my taxes next year because, as time goes by, cost of living does not match the cost of, really living.
Right. Julia, your hand went up too.
I would say his international policy has been bold and effective in ways that we never anticipated. Getting rid of ISIS, getting rid of Soleimani, getting rid of al-Baghdadi. I mean, bold. I will tell you personally, I am a Zionist. For a president to so boldly stand for Israel is very important to me, and I'm a Christian, by the way. And finally, national security is critical for me. Strong borders. So I want to.
Yeah, those are great answers, right? You get a lot of time when people make these videos and they'll go to a Bernie rally or something. Or I remember a lot of this with Obama's re-election. Like, oh, so what do you like that Obama's done? And they're like, they can't name a single thing, right? Those are 2 great answers, like very thoughtful, very engaging, and you can't deny any of it. We got one more clip. Yeah. So let's play one more clip, one more exchange.
I want somebody I can look up to, somebody that has dignity, somebody that's not bullying.
I don't see Trump as bullying, though. I see him challenging because the ridiculous that goes on sometimes that you're right, he's not a politician. I thought it was refreshing to find a businessman who made himself a millionaire want to work for me. That's what.
Yes,
so
that's
I
not agree with
salary.
you.
Exactly.
I do have to ask, don't you think he's very thin-skinned?
Listen, my husband's thin-skinned and I whack-a-doodle, and I'm still with him 26 years.
Well, that's I think a politician needs to be thicker-skinned and not excoriate those who disagree with him.
I will tell you, there's a long
I
line
think
of
there's a lot of
Republicans
fear.
who have failed because they've taken the high road and they've been buried by it. And I think, I'm not saying that this necessarily appeals to me, but I think Trump appeals to a lot of people because he punches back.
So Donald Trump isn't everyone's cup of tea, without a doubt. I'm going to vote for him. I don't like everything he says. I don't need him to be like me. I need to be safe, and I need to be able to know that my economy, for my friends, my family, is solid.
Is President Trump going to be reelected?
I think he will be.
I think he will be.
Yes. You think he will be?
Yes, I do.
Wow. Very interesting. Super
If you're Team Trump watching that, you're feeling pretty good.
Well,
You think those are my people. If you're trying to remove President Trump, you're saying I got some work to do.
That's right. All good stuff there, again, from those Trump-supporting women. Let's go back to the very beginning of that clip. This idea that we need someone to look up to. Remember, that's what the first woman said to start that exchange. She says, I want somebody I can look up to. Like, what are you talking about? What are you, like an 8-year-old girl? What do you mean, you're looking for a role model? You're like a 65-year-old woman. You need someone to look up to? And even if you were looking for someone to look up to, you want to look up to our president? Come on, listen. In a perfect world, sure, right? You can look up to our president as a great man, a great role model for your children and grandchildren, blah, 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 blah. But actually, no, maybe even in a perfect world, you shouldn't be looking to the president for those things. Really, you shouldn't be looking to the president for anything other than what that last woman said, which is faithfully execute the laws and lead an agenda that ideally leads us to be as free as possible. That's really all you got to look up to the president to do. Stop looking for anyone else to be your savior, as we talked about in the last segment, whether it's Democrats looking for their savior to take down Trump or even Republicans looking to Trump as a savior. And I don't think any of those women did there, right? They understood that being a president is a very specific job. He's not a perfect person, but tell me where he's been ineffective in fulfilling his conservative policies, our conservative policies. Where has he been ineffective? Where has he gone back on any campaign promise? The only thing I'd say is spending. And that's a big one. I don't mean to make light of that. But even then, you compare Trump to Bernie or Elizabeth Warren's plans to take your money. They're different planets. All right, coming up, we're going to move away from politics for a second. I despise unnecessary groveling apologies. And I came across the apology first. Usually you know the thing, and then the apology comes later. You can predict that the apology is going to be happening in the next 24 hours from the PR team. But this time I heard the apology first, before I even knew what the controversy was, and that made it even worse. So we'll give you the latest example of that next. True story, Mike Slater. Spread the word. Hey, Slater Crusaders. So this is a silly controversy here, but it's a good example of a bigger thing that's going on in America that is worth our attention. So do you watch America's Got Talent? It's on NBC. One of the judges was Gabrielle Union. She was an actress on Bring It On, 10 Things I Hate About You, She's All That, your wife's favorite movies. She left the show, and she said there were there's 3 reasons. Perceived racial incidents, Simon Cowell's habit of smoking indoors, and attempts to keep the show from misgendering contestants. Okay, those are her 3 problems. So we'll get to the racist incidents in a second, because that's the important part. But apparently Simon Cowell would smoke in his dressing room, and the smoke would travel through the air vents into her dressing room. And this was a big problem for her, I guess. And listen, it's annoying. I don't like cigarette smoke. But he's the guy, right? He is the show. It's a big problem for you, move dressing rooms. What's the deal? On the misgendering criticism, she said there were some drag performers on the show, and she asked them what gender they prefer. And I guess her even asking the drag queens offended or annoyed the producers or something. I don't know how she knows it annoyed the producers. Like, this story's so stupid. But the racist one, this is the one that matters. So there are 3 racist incidents that we know of that offended Gabrielle to her core. The first, there was an act where someone did musical impressions throughout the ages. And at one point, the person put on black gloves while imitating Beyonce. And she called it blackface hands. The man was performing in blackface hands. That's a thing now, I guess. It never aired, but blackface hands. Justin Trudeau, he did blackface knees one of the times that he dressed in blackface. But there you go, blackface hands. So watch out wearing black gloves. Second thing, second major problem, apparently there was some 10-year-old rapper on the show, and producers said that they needed an act that America could get behind. So instead, they pushed forward this all-white dance troupe. But that criticism doesn't make sense because there's types of acts from all different kinds of people. So you can't say that one act was favored over another. Also, that kid went on to be on Ellen, and now he has his own show on BET, so his own Tyler Perry show on BET. So the kid's fine. But here's the big racial incident. Okay, now brace yourself for this. Apparently, there's a painting of Simon Cowell with his 5 dogs. And Jay Leno, who was a guest judge one week, he said that painting looks like something on the menu at a Korean restaurant. Wow. She was so disturbed by that racist comment. It's difficult for me to even go on. She was so disturbed by that racist comment that just couldn't take it anymore. By the way, South Koreans eat about 1 million dogs a year. But still, it hurts so much. Is it racist to say that fact? Are we allowed? Do you know in South Korea they have dog farms where they raise dogs so people can eat them? And there's certain types of breeds of dogs that they prefer over other breeds, is that racist? It's true. Also, remember last week we talked about the food market in Wuhan, China, where they have koala bear on the menu? You can eat koala bears in China? Is it racist to point that out too? So there's her complaints, okay? There's her big problems. Jay Leno's joke about Korean people eating dog, okay? So I remember hearing that a couple weeks ago, whatever. So I'm scrolling through Twitter yesterday, which is a problem. Nothing good ever comes from that. And I found this tweet from Dwayne Wade. He said, someone please take away Terry Crews's phone. And I thought, oh, geez, what did Terry Crews say? I actually like these moments where I kind of come in at the end of the story or like in the middle of the end. And I don't really, I see the effect of a thing and I don't even know what caused it. I like this because I try to think like what happened? Like, what did the president say that resulted in this? Or what's going on here? I like when this happens. So I come in the middle. What did Terry Crews say? Now, Terry Crews, very highly esteemed in the woke crowd, and really should be. Because remember when the whole Me Too thing was really going on, he came out and talked about the time when he was sexually harassed by a man and told his story. And it was a very good thing because here you have this strong man who was vulnerable and open about his experience. And then he concluded about like supporting women and believing women. Or it was really mostly, it wasn't believing women as much as critiquing the claim that women, or that a lot of people will make, like, oh, well, why didn't you come out sooner? Right? They'll say to a woman who was raped 20 years ago, why are you waiting until now? And he said, oh, there's a lot of shame that's involved with this. And it was really important, I think, for a man to come out and say that. So it was all very nice when he did that. So he's very, very esteemed. Excuse me, my first sneeze on TV. He was very esteemed in the woke crowd for that. But now he's getting canceled. Now he's got to get his phone taken away from him. What did he do? So I went to his Twitter to find out, and he wrote this super groveling apologies. And there's nothing I hate worse than super groveling apologies. And they're all the same. Oh, I have so much to learn. I'm so sorry. What have I done? This was never my intention. I need to listen more. I'm so grateful for the allies who are helping me understand the blah, 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 blah. This goes on and on and on. And I'm like, oh man, what did he do? What did he say? I can't wait. So here it is. This is the clip.
First of all, I can't speak for sexism because I'm not a woman, but I can't speak on behalf of any racism comments. That was never my experience on America's Got Talent. In fact, it was the most diverse place I have ever been in my 20 years of entertainment. The top 10 acts were Asian, women, older, younger, black, white. It was everything in the gamut.
Hold on, I gotta pull up his actual apologies. So you don't think I'm making it up. That was it. That was the clip. He was asked if it was a toxic atmosphere in America's Got Talent. That was the whole thing. He had to write this whole, Gabrielle, you are a role model to the entire black community, and it is my desire to, I should have understood, you needed my support, blah, blah, blah. That's what he said that required this is some professor. Terry Crews is the worst kind of black man. This makes him more than just a trash black man. He's a manipulator and user, an opportunist and a betrayer, a sellout and a deceiver. He's the worst. From that quote you just heard right there. Come on. He said, it wasn't my experience, right? He was asked about racism or just toxic environment in general. And he said, oh, that's not it was never my experience. He didn't say Gabrielle Union's a liar. He didn't say she never experienced any racism. She didn't say what I did 5 minutes ago, that Jay Leno joke is a stupid joke, and actually, 1 million dogs are eaten every year in Southern Korea. He didn't say any of that. He just said, oh, that wasn't my experience. You can't do that now? Again, the apology, oh, I should have at least understood that you needed my support. Yeah, but maybe someone needs to tell Gabrielle Union to lighten up. Maybe just a little too woke for your own good. And I mean this genuinely. Everyone needs a good friend to say, I understand you're mad, but you're wrong. You're seeing this wrong. This happened to me just the other day. Something happened at work, not this work, different work, and I thought I was wronged. So I called up my friend. I told him the whole story, and he said, yeah, I see you, but nah. That's what he said. He's like, I hear you, but nah, I don't. He said, it's not worth getting worked up over. And I said, yeah, you're probably right. And that was it. That was the end of it. That was the end of it. Right? Imagine if he was like, oh, wow, Slater. Whew, man. Wow. Oh, that's the worst thing I've ever heard. But it's not. It wasn't. And he set me straight. Friends, you need a good friend to help you snap back into reality, not validate your feelings all the time, because most of the time your feelings are wrong. Like, I don't know what people wanted Terry Crews to say. Like, do you want Terry Crews to get up there and be like, yes, she definitely was offended by that Jay Leno joke, and so was I. It's horrible. And also, everything Gabrielle Union says is always true, and there's no other acceptable opinion to have other than to bow down to everything she says. Thank you. That's the end of my statement. Like, what good is that? So I don't even know what people wanted, but you're the worst kind of black man. Give me a break. Quick side story on believing all women, because that's what the root of all this is. You got to believe all women. That's not a healthy road to go down. This is a reporter, journalist, writer, Julia Ioffe. I think that's how you pronounce her name. I don't know. She says, she wrote, this was recently. Remember when the Bernie Warren, like a woman can't be a president thing from a couple weeks ago? She said, have we learned nothing about, for the people who are accusing Warren of lying, have you learned nothing? Isn't this the lesson of Me Too, that you need to believe all women? And Jesse Kelly wrote back, he goes, exactly. I mean, what has Elizabeth Warren ever lied about? More serious case. This is just a couple weeks ago. 15-year-old Florida girl claimed that a man grabbed her and raped her when she was jogging. She was jogging in broad daylight, claimed that a man came up, grabbed her, and raped her. She described the man, described the getaway car, did the whole thing. Police obviously were involved, and it created a bunch of panic around the neighborhood. One of her neighbors said, oh, it's so scary. It happened right across the street. I don't go outside by myself anymore because we don't even know who the guy is, right? All this panic and news and blah, 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 blah. She made it all up. Made it all. Why? In her words, she said she made it up to get attention. There's a lot of reasons why people make things up. I think right now there's this giant movement or incentive, I guess, to make things up so that you can be a part of the group. What group? The victim group. The victim group. The Me Too victim group. Which is, and not even the Me Too victim, just victim group. Which is, being a victim has become a sort of a noble thing. It's something to be proud of. It's something you then become and then you march about and you find solidarity with. On the flip side, I read an article the other day about a woman who carries a gun and she shot her stalker. And she said she's so sick of people talking about Me Too, she wants more not me. And then went on a whole Second Amendment thing. Anyway, point is, don't believe all women. Don't believe all women. How many cases of false accusations, life-destroying accusations, have been made even just the past few years? And this, at least this 15-year-old girl, she didn't say, that guy raped me. It was like, someone did, right? But this happens all the time. Like, that guy did this thing to me, and he didn't. right? False accusation all the time. Don't believe all women. Don't believe all men. Women lie, men lie. People lie all the time. Trust but verify. Is that a healthy posture to have? Find the truth. That's the point. Anyway, one last example of cancel culture. And really just cancel culture jumping the shark here. Jemele Hill, she used to work at ESPN. Remember, she got fired a couple years ago. She was too woke for ESPN. So now she writes at The Atlantic. So she wrote this about Nick Bosa. He plays, he played for the Niners? I think it was the Niners. He played last night in the Super Bowl. So here's what she said. She said, Nick Bosa continues to show exactly who he is. I asked the question before, if there's nothing wrong with who he's following and what he's liking on social media, then why is he so secretive? So she posted this picture. This is a picture that, it wasn't a picture that Nick Bosa posted. It was a picture that someone Nick Bosa follows on Instagram posted. And Nick Bosa is getting criticized because of something that someone else posted on their account, right? So that's not even Nick Bosa's joke. First of all, it's an old meme. They just replace the name every time a celebrity dies, right? It's an old joke. But he didn't retweet it. He didn't like it. He didn't even know it existed probably. So Jemele, I just want to articulate this. Jemele Hill is criticizing someone for the things someone else posts. So I'm now personally responsible for everyone I follow on Twitter and everything that they write. That's insane. And by that logic, Jemele Hill is a terrible person for retweeting this meme in the first place, a meme which I wouldn't have ever seen. And Nick Bosa probably didn't even ever know it because he didn't post it. But this is what you do when you're a social justice warrior. This is the life you live. I gotta go. Point is, don't believe all women. Don't believe all men. Find the truth. And also, don't submit to people who just want to shut you down and tear you down for sport. Don't encourage them. And I guess a side message, if you really want to support a friend, don't just validate their insanity. Help them see what's true. This is True Story. I'm Mike Slater. Spread the word. Hey, Slater Crusaders. Today's caucus day, so I feel like we should wrap up the show with one sort of big picture vision for the future. Now that, I guess this is officially the beginning of election season. I don't know when you want to declare that, but we'll declare it today. Geez, this sounds really bad. I'll put a positive spin on it in a minute, I promise. Things are going to get worse. I'll just stop it. What do you mean? Politically and culturally, things are going to get worse in our country. We're not even close to a rock bottom. We will look back on 2019 and yearn for its sanity. Right? We'll look back on 2019 and say, if we only had drag queen story hours in libraries. As opposed to, right, it's gonna get worse. Then we'll be like, oh man, at least back in 2019, we only had drag queen story hours in libraries, not in kindergarten classrooms, right? At least in 2022, we'll be dressing up kindergarten kids in drag. And we'll bring the drag queens into the kindergarten classroom. I don't know what 2020 is gonna bring, but we're gonna look back on 2019 as a walk in the park when it comes to our cultural insanity. Things will only get worse. We're not close to rock bottom. You know, the Democrats, they play this game that Trump is so mean and our political discourse, oh, boo-hoo. First of all, politically, remember we shared the story the other day? I forget why we shared this. Oh, we were making fun of the sergeant at arms when he walks in and goes, hear ye. And we shared the story of, this is 1862. There was some senator from Delaware, and he called Lincoln a weak and imbecile man on the Senate floor, and the vice president told the sergeant at arms to remove this man. And the senator pulled out his pistol and pointed it at the sergeant at arms and said, let him do it at his own expense. Pointed it right at the sergeant at arms, right there on the Senate floor. That would be newsworthy. News should break in on that one when that happens, right? We're pretty far from that. I remember, who was the guy who beat Charles Sumner? Brooks or whatever, beat him to a pulp with his cane right there on the floor. So we're not there yet. We've been there. We're way better, but we'll go back. Why not? Oh, we've progressed. We're so much better than that now, Blaze. Just an example, it's actually been a little while since we've seen some of this stuff, but this is just a taste. And it'll all get worse. Protests in New York City against police. They called it, I forget, I don't know what the official name was, but they called it like the 275 strike or something. They're demanding free public transportation. That's their big thing right now. So here they are at Grand Central Station. You get the idea. There's a lot of chaos. There's a ton of videos we can play, a lot of swear words. So we're not going to play them. But here's their official call to action video.
To all our friends, family, students, wage workers, teachers, musicians, transit workers, the Police 3 is coming, J31, right here in New York City. We encourage you to link up with your friends, your family, and think of the ways you can move in infinity to build and up on J31 all day long.
Oh, they look like a real nice group of kids, don't they? Don't they, those three? They sent a tweet out that said, "The streets are ours, the trains are ours, the walls are ours, the moment is ours. How will you and your crew build and blank up? FS up. How will you and your crew build and tear down?" Basically, is their message. Did you catch one of the words in the message we played there? It was really interesting. He said, link up with your friends and think of ways you can move in affinity to build and FS up. So build and tear down, right? Weird. Move in affinity. Did that stand out to you? I remember I saw that. I was like, move in affinity? That's weird. What a weird way to put that. Think of ways you can move in affinity. Right? That's odd. Have you ever said that your entire life? Move in affinity? I've never heard that. So affinity is a spontaneous sympathy for something or someone. So you can't think of ways to move in affinity because thinking involves planning, which takes away the spontaneity of it. So for what that's worth, they're using that term incorrectly. But I bring that up only because here's another George Orwellian component to this, other than just the hijacking of language, which is what revolutionaries, progressives always do. They wrote, this is a tweet here. So it says, happening everywhere right now. Hop, hold, or chain. So here's a video of this. So they just chained open the emergency exits. Hop over the turnstile, hold the door open, or chain it open like that. So they chained open the emergency door so people could just walk through and not pay the fare, and people are doing that. So here's the Orwellian aspect of this. Paying the fare, so doing the thing you're supposed to do, is now itself an act of disobedience. Think about that. Obviously, in a normal circumstance, everyone pays the fare. That's obedience. And you break the rules by going through the door illegally, right? But now it's flipped. Now paying the fare is an act of rebellion because the pressure here is to follow the crowd. Follow the crowd. Do what everyone else is doing. Break the rules. Everyone else is doing it. Join the revolution. And instead you say, no, I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to pay my fare and go through the turnstile. So you're playing by the rules. And this is going to happen more and more. And I hope you get the metaphor here, right? This is going to happen more and more in our society moving forward. Playing by the rules, doing the proper thing is going to be rebellion. Are you with me? Does that make sense? If it doesn't, it will. It will soon. Playing by the rules, doing things the right way, the righteous way, the proper way, that will become a form of rebellion. Because everything's backwards. Everything's backwards. And it's only getting worse. And people keep falling for it because it's easy to. Check out this poster. You don't fall for it, though. You wouldn't fall for this. Check out this poster. This is at a phone bank at Bernie's one of Bernie's phone banks, right? So this is a script. Maybe hard to read there. Let me read it. So you call someone up and say, hey, vote for Bernie Sanders. And they say, well, Bernie's a socialist, and that's scary to me. And the sign says, you need to affirm. All right, so you're the Bernie supporter, and you affirm. I get that. Labels can be intimidating, especially to those unfamiliar to us. And then you give the answer. You affirmed, and then you gave the answer. The truth is, what Bernie stands for is social equality. It's underlined. He wants to ensure equal opportunity for all, not just those on the top. That means a healthcare system, school system, and a government that's reliable, accessible, and effective. That's what he means by socialism. And then redirect. In what ways is your life impacted by the current system and government? So there you go. That's the script that you got to follow. How condescending is that? All right? How condescending. I get that. Labels can be intimidating, especially to those unfamiliar to us. No. I know exactly what this label means. I know exactly what socialism means. And I know exactly, both economically and morally, why the ideology that he has, and therefore you have, and the policies that you're fighting for, I know exactly why they will hurt me and my family and you and your family and our entire country. This is all very familiar to me. I know exactly, when I say I'm worried he's a socialist, I know exactly what that means. Oh, I know labels can be intimidating. Well, no. I get it. I know he's a socialist. I know why that's a problem. And we can share, and we will, moving forward, stories of people who have lived in socialist countries. Could you imagine saying that to someone, like let's say someone came from Venezuela, and Bernie supporter calls him up, and the Venezuela guy, right, he's from Venezuela, he grew up, he's like, I think Bernie's a socialist, that's scary to me. Oh, I get that, labels can be intimidating, especially those unfamiliar. I grew up in Venezuela. Let me tell you about socialism, right? And we'll share many more of those stories. And then he goes into this word garbage, right? Well, he's not a socialist, he's a democratic socialist. Oh, okay. Because that's an obvious difference. I'm sorry. No, we're for social equality. We want a school system that's reliable, accessible, and effective. Like, who listens to that and says, oh, I misunderstood. I didn't know he wanted things to be reliable and effective. Oh, that's what he means by socialism? Oh, because I thought he meant taking all my money and taking over the means of production and distribution of the private enterprise. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know he just meant reliable and effective, because government's so reliable and effective in everything else they currently do. Here, take all my money. Who falls for that? Way too many people. But people always have, I guess, and people always will. I don't like being negative. I'm an optimistic person. I say things are going to get worse, but I also believe we'll get through it in the end. But it's going to be a longer road. And it won't be one politically. It's not just voting for Trump or voting for your candidate. That's a tiny part of it. It's got to be cultural. It's got to be cultural. It has to require virtue. It has to require doing the right thing, paying your fare, even when everyone else is going through the emergency exit. It requires all the virtues: wisdom, prudence, modesty. J-Lo and Shakira, sorry. Sincerity, faith, fortitude. Google, we got to run here, but Google the Aristotelian virtues, Christian virtues, cardinal virtues. Study them out. Make them the pillars of your home, because they're not studied in school. Your kids aren't going to pick them up in our culture, and they're not going to learn them in school. In the absence of a strong foundation of virtue, money conquers all. Money conquers all. And the problem is, to go back to victimhood in the last segment, there's a lot of money in victimhood. And there's a lot of built-in money with our universities and our bureaucracies and journalists online and on the TV. There's big money in victimhood and hot takes, and there's big money in fake news and constant outrage. And that's all because there's a lack of virtue to stand on. The good news is, this show right here is free. And you can set up whatever culture you want in your home and in your life. Don't get fooled by the Orwellian Bernie talk. And let's always do the right thing. Pay your subway fare, even when no one else is, and is an act of rebellion itself. True story. Mike Slater. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day.